Can you please state your name,
Donald Anderson,
and your birth date,
July 30th, 1947,
and your current address?
Harwood, North Dakota.
And what branch of service did you serve in?
U.S. Navy.
And could you tell us your rank?
I was a E5 radarman.
Were you drafted or did you enlist in the service?
I enlisted.
Where were you living at the time that you enlisted?
I guess I was roughly living in Argyle. I had started college in Bemidji, and I was in my fourth quarter. I enlisted, and I went in January, and I attended fall quarter Bemidji, so you could say I was in college.
Why did you join the service?
Well, because of lack of direction of knowing where I wanted to go in college, and plus the draft had a lot to say about it, and I I wanted to make my own decision as to where, what, how, and when.
Why did you pick the service branch that you joined?
Well, it was pretty obvious that Vietnam, their people are short and dark, and I am tall and blonde. And I didn't think I needed to be ducking bullets from those people. So I didn't want the Army, and therefore the Navy was the best alternative.
Do you recall your first days in service?
Like boot camp or what?
Yeah.
Well, that was an eye-opener, and of course, once they cut your hair down and you looked around and everybody looked the same, and you found out that you were no better or worse than anybody else, it kind of brought you off your cloud.
Can you tell us about some of your boot camp and training experiences?
And nothing was really too great other than the fact that I'm a fairly large guy, or 6'3" and whatever, and the standard issue clothing for my size had to be special ordered, and so like I didn't have a outside jacket to wear, and I had to wear a sweater, and a lot of little things like that. I mean, they caught up to me, but not until I was out of boot camp and later on. And otherwise, between that and I went to San Diego, and people always thought that, well, San Diego in January would be wonderful. It's not. Not on the ocean front. It's cool, and it was cold there.
Do you remember any of your instructors?
Not honestly. You had one guy leading. He was a cook, and he wasn't heavy set, which is kind of unusual from what I saw after that fact. But they aren't taught to be friends with anybody, so that's kind of.
Where exactly did you go while you were serving? Like when you first enlisted to when you were serving?
Well, basically after boot camp, I went to basic electricity electronics school, and then I went up to Treasure Island, which is very close to Alcatraz. We could see it from the school site, and that's where I went to radarman school, and then I went to the East Coast and caught a ship, and luckily it was a brand new ship. And we deployed within a month for Vietnam from the East Coast, and thereafter we served in, or that would have been in 1968 when we left in January, and in those days the Navy cruises lasted 9 months instead of 6 like they kind of do now, so we were gone quite a long time. So we went down and through the Panama Canal to get over there, and we kind of, once we got there, you kind of had Subic Bay as your basic closest port that you always went back to, and that was in the Philippines. And you also would get to go to Hong Kong and some places in Japan, but otherwise we were just out in the Gulf of Tonkin, and the aircraft carriers sent their planes up to us, and we were way up north, and they would check, we would be the radar ship for them so that they would fly in and we would send them in country to do what they needed to do. But more often than not, once we got there, they kept moving to DMZ further south, so they weren't doing as much bombing, they were just doing photo reconnaissance and things like that. And we'd be there, probably out there for maybe anywhere from 20 days to 40 days. And then we'd get relieved and we'd go get replenished in the ship, and we'd get a little free time or in the ports in Asia, and then came back and came to San Francisco, and then went back down and through the Panama Canal again to get to Norfolk. And once you'd get back home, then you'd have your annual leave or whatever. You'd get supposedly 30 days a month, a year, so you could go on leave. Then I came back and we did it all over again, and in '69, and back down through the Panama Canal. And one interesting thing about the Panama Canal, it's one of the very few times that a Navy ship will ever be in fresh water. There's a lake in the middle of there that's called Gatun Lake, and otherwise Navy ships are in salt water, and you know what salt does to metal, it rusts. So it's a good place to be able to rinse down your ship or whatever. One or a few times you can be afforded that opportunity. And then the second interesting fact about the Panama Canal, when you go in from the Atlantic side, you are further west than when you come out on the Pacific side. If you can imagine that. It isn't going east-west, it's going sideways and backwards.
At the Panama
Canal, right.
Oh, I
so
thought
you
it was
get
a straight shot.
you look real close on a map, and it is a you are further east when you get to the Pacific than you were when you started in the Atlantic.
That's weird.
And so then got back over to Vietnam, and basically things were pretty normal. Nothing really changed from the first time, and it was kind of old hat. And to me, it was kind of a game that everybody played, that we were way up north out of Haiphong, and we had a job, and we had to be within this PIRAZ, which was Primary Identification Radar Advisory Zone, and we had to be within 3 miles of this particular buoy. And the North Vietnamese knew we were there also. So they, every day at 1600, the MiGs would come towards us, and then just roughly fly up too close to us, and they roughly knew the range of our missiles on the ship. So they'd just fly towards us, turn around and go home. But just like, we know you're there, and ha ha ha. And it's 4:30 in the afternoon, it was 16:30. Every day it was just like clockwork. That's what happened, and it's kind of curious, and it's nothing bad. And so it was just got to be kind of normal operations over there, and nothing bad really happened at any time. And so then that second cruise, we got to go around the world on the way back. We went down to Singapore and then over, and into Mozambique and then around up to Portugal. And then after that, we went through by England and up to Copenhagen, Denmark, which was absolutely the best liberty port that we ever hit, and a very, very fine city. And we were somewhat appreciated there because during the Vietnam War, most people looked down on veterans and called us baby killers and whatever. And in Copenhagen, the older generation knew what we did for them in World War II. And the Americans went in and saved them from everything that Hitler was doing and whatever, so they were very receptive to us being there.
What's your opinion of the war? Like, for us joining it and stuff? For the Vietnam War?
Well, I don't really like to get political, but it had no reason. We didn't have a purpose to be there. They roughly said it was for oil, but they don't have oil there. So I don't honestly know what the thing was, and then after the fact, or watching some of those Burns documentaries on public TV and whatever, it was both political parties. It was started with Kennedy, a Democrat, and then the Republicans took it over and they just kept it going, so you couldn't blame one party over the other either. So
That's when you just blame all politicians.
yeah, it's just, they kind of wanted to keep it alive, and they did. And to go halfway around the world, and then what happened in those years, like '68 was a terrible year for the country, and with the assassinations and everything else. So,
Yeah.
and to my thinking, I missed out on so much of that because we didn't get daily news like you do here.
Yeah.
You know, we would get Stars and Stripes, which was the military paper, and we didn't know about political conventions going on in the country in '68 and whatever. And so, I mean, to my thinking, we had no real purpose.
Well, actually, are there any, like, stories or anything specific you want to share?
No, not honestly, other than the fact that I remember when I first came home on leave once, and I flew back and had to go to Grand Forks. And I flew out of there on a DC-3, which is a little prop job. And they weren't warm, and I knew something was not well when they came and handed out blankets.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
That's the way it was in the '60s. It was a small propeller-driven plane, and then otherwise, I guess I have no regrets of being in the military or whatever. I was treated well, and then unfortunately, or I guess not unfortunately, I came to realize that after the fact that in 1972 my ship actually got attacked in Vietnam. The MiGs were right there, and they still question as to why they didn't bomb them, because they flew right over. And so, I mean, I was lucky to never have to experience anything closer, like any,
Like casualties and stuff?
yeah, like any combat.
Yeah. So you didn't see any while you were there?
No.
And because of that, I'm going to assume you were probably never a prisoner of war?
No.
Do you have any medals or citations?
No, we just got this typical meritorious unit commendation. I think we got that each cruise we were on or something for this ship for doing a good job, and then the Vietnam one. But
So was being in the well, the Navy, but like the military in general, how did that affect your life after?
Well, honestly, it put me 4 years behind. As all my high school classmates were done with college and they were starting a career, and I was just had to catch up.
Did you go back to college when you came back, or just?
Yeah, I went to college and finished on the GI Bill.
Is there anything else you'd like to share, or just talk about?
I think we covered most good things.
Most of the good things.
Yeah, and I don't, like I say, I'm not mad at anybody or anything, that I didn't have any bad
Anything else?
experiences, put it
Yeah.
that way. And I definitely got to see a lot, and when you can cruise around the world, that seen more than most have, so.